My name is Bronwyn Malden. I'm going to read two excerpts from a short story called Sensible Cars for Santa Ynez. It's the story of a school teacher and sometime political activist who learns some difficult lessons on the mean streets of her suburban Los Angeles town. The story was published by Blythe House Quarterly, an online literary magazine, and at the end of this clip, I'll give you a link where you can read the whole story. Councilman Hargrove, how do you vote? No. And with that, the Santa Ynez City Council pounded the final nail into the coffin containing the past 3 years of Sandy Weaver's life. 3 years of meetings, petitions, letters to the editor, fundraisers, and public hearings. 3 years of analyzing, explaining, debating, downright cajoling, and wheedling when the situation called for it. And for what? 4-3 against when the final votes were tallied. Someone behind her patted Sandy's shoulder as she stood up and murmured some consoling words about next year. Next year? No, Sandy heard a voice inside her head say. No more years. Not like this one. Not like the last 3. On her left, Eddie Contreras, immediate past president of Sensible Cars for Santa Ynez, beamed his best snake oil grin and spoke to her in a low, gravelly voice, barely moving his lips. Smile for the cameras, Sandy. Suddenly, Sandy's eyes were blinded by light from a KTLA cameraman. How do you feel about the vote? The cameraman shouted. Were you surprised at how it came out? As she always did, Sandy instinctively took a half step back to let Eddie take the question. She'd never been comfortable on the front lines. She'd rather be in the back, getting the work done. And the fact was, Sandy had known how the vote would go, if she'd just been honest with herself. A week ago, everything had been different. The count had been 4-3 in favor, and the city of Santa Ynez was about to ban itself from buying sports utility vehicles. But a week is a long time in the world of local politics. 3 months later, on a gray, gloomy Sunday afternoon in April, Sandy found herself sitting on the living room sofa, notebook computer in her lap, typing out a how-to guide for activists initiating SUV purchasing bans in their own cities. She and Eddie were still getting calls about it. He'd give the big picture, the conceptual view, then send them on to her for the details. Sandy was just inserting an electronic copy of one of their better flyers into the document when she heard the squeal of brakes and the sound of metal crashing against glass. Sandy jumped up from the sofa and ran to the front door. A tow-headed boy lay splay-legged, face down in the middle of the street, beside a dark blue, child-sized mountain bike, flat on its side. Several feet behind that was a shiny silver SUV. A Porsche Cayenne Turbo, Sandy saw, its front end pressed up hard against the crumpled truck of her next-door neighbor's brand-new yellow Honda Civic. Sandy could hear the doors of other houses flying open. Up the street, a woman screamed and began running toward the accident. As Sandy stared at the scene, the boy stood up slowly and turned his elbows upward to inspect the bloody scrapes. The running woman fell to her knees in front of the boy, his mother. Finally unfrozen, Sandy called out, "Do you need an ambulance?" "Yes, for God's sake," the woman cried out. "Mommy, I'm okay," the boy answered, his voice pitched with almost equal terror. "He didn't hit me, I fell down." Sandy heard sirens approaching before she could find her telephone, so she abandoned her search. She picked up a notebook and looked up the Porsche SUV on her list. Then she went back outside to see how she could help. By now, a crowd had formed. Several neighbors and a police officer were gathered around the boy and his sobbing mother. A neighbor was engaged in an angry exchange with one police officer and with Trevor Hargrove, son of the city council member and driver of the SUV. She couldn't stop herself. Sandy marched up to Trevor without shutting the front door behind her. "Do you have any idea what that SUV weighs?" she said. "Excuse me, ma'am. Please step back," the policewoman said. She was taking down information in small black-lined boxes on a white form. Sandy turned to her. "Do you know?" "I didn't hit the kid," Trevor said plaintively. I'll speak to you in a moment, ma'am, the officer said. I'm taking care of this now. The Cayenne Turbo has a gross vehicle weight rating of 6,790 pounds. Trevor, it is illegal to drive your SUV on this street. Really? Trevor said. He turned to the policewoman. Is that true? I wouldn't know about that, sir. Ma'am? She turned to Sandy again, squaring her shoulders. If you do not step away right now, I will arrest you for interfering with the police investigation. Sandy suddenly saw herself from the policewoman's point of view. Crazy neighbor in gray sweatpants and a maroon chamois shirt so threadbare that the lining glowed white at her neck, making incoherent accusations in her bare feet, while a 6-year-old boy and his mother screamed, and 2 ruined cars leaked toxic fluids into the street. Sorry, she muttered, and walked away.